already.
No.
Einen wunderschönen guten Abend, meine Damen und Herren. Es ist Dienstagabend, Sie sind an Ihren Bildschirmen, eine gute Entscheidung, denn auch diesmal haben wir es geschafft, zwei fantastische Expertinnen gewinnen zu dürfen und es ist uns gelungen, dass sie unserer Einladung gefolgt sind. Das Besondere ist, dass beide auch quasi KollegInnen von uns sind, im Sinne von, dass sie im Umfeld von Research unterwegs sind und sehr, sehr viele Informationen gesammelt haben. Und diese spannenden Informationen möchten wir gerne mit Ihnen teilen. Now I switch to good old English. Hello, Claire. Hello, Ginger. It's fantastic that you have taken the time and followed our invitation. Thank you so much.
Our pleasure.
Thank you, Rob.
It would be fantastic, starting with Claire, if you then go for Ginger, have an intro such as what is your role in Genesys and what for former lives, as I learned, business lives in the past, the former lives, what roles had you had there?
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for the introduction. My name is Claire Beattie. I'm Senior Director for Thought Leadership at Genesys. And what that means is I run all of our big research projects, our big research collaborations, our surveys and our white papers to understand what trends are happening in the market, trends in the customer experience. My former life was most recently with MIT Technology Review, the magazine. It's affiliated with MIT. I wrote about issues like artificial intelligence and the potential for that across different industries. I wrote about 5G, smart cities, and a lot about sustainability. All themes that I continue to be very interested in. I am based in Nairobi, Kenya. Before that, I lived in Singapore for 12 years, and I actually understood your introduction because I was born in Germany. So that's just a bit about me.
What brought you to the place where you're at right now? Sorry if I short circuit you, Ginger.
That's fine.
Why Nairobi?
Well, family reasons. My husband was working in a real estate job that brought him from Asia to Africa, and never had been to sub-Saharan Africa before. Had no concept of what Nairobi might be like, but it's a very beautiful place, and really encourage you to come and get to know it.
Okay.
Yeah.
We might take you at your word.
Yeah, when I'm strolling through my local park, seeing birds and squirrels, Claire's strolling through her local park, seeing elephants and gazelle and whatever else is passing through.
Yeah, sorry, it's true.
Well, so hello everyone. I'm Ginger Conlon. I work on Claire's team as a thought leadership director at Genesys. And prior to joining Genesys, I was the editor-in-chief of several different publications, business to business, covering customer experience, marketing, and occasionally sales. So I've been in the industry for a long time. They can't get rid of me because I love it.
We would never want to get rid of you.
It's a good thing to have you both here, and I would like to emphasize that we have a very international time zone spanning opportunity today, that from Africa to Europe, Frankfurt, Germany, to Seattle, Chicago, and New York, if I'm not mistaken, we are covering around the world time zones. And even more thrilling, the report or the reports you have researched and have analyzed what is going around in the world have been selected into these specific zones as well as APEC and Latam are not yet covered by us, so we should have invited Jesus Hoyos and probably somebody we know from Asia Pacific to make it around to the research. Yeah. Funny enough, about talking about Africa, I have not been to Nairobi, Kenya, but I have been to Ghana. As my eldest son has taken the attitude, till he is 30, he would like to touch every continent at least for 3 to 6 months and work and live there.
Including Antarctica?
Well, I guess he is not a fan of having it too cold, as Ghana and Ecuador and Nicaragua and now Malaysia are quite comfortable from the temperature. So Antarctica, I don't guess, but he is thinking about marrying his girl from Costa Rica in Denmark. So he is going for the north as well. And they plan to stay for the next business arrangement in the Netherlands. So now back to the global perspectives.
So basically, we can have him be our roving reporter to talk about the customer experience in all those various countries.
That would be a fantastic idea. And in his role as the Boston Consulting Group, as an analyst and as a consultant for several areas, he would have, as long as he has fun with number crunching, he loves number crunching. Yeah, something which is not mine. Yeah, interpretation, yes, but getting the figures right, oh, he's brilliant. So I would like to start with Claire again, and you have undertaken a report in a fantastic, let's say, fantastic by the challenge was a very new one time. You have made a global report and the side aspects and have focused into what was going on over at least 12 to 18 months. Tell us more, please.
Certainly. Yeah, so we were interested to understand what was the impact of the pandemic on the customer experience. What had it changed in terms of what consumers wanted from companies? How had it changed people's perspective on their relationships with others, their happiness, their health, their well-being? And we wanted to really explore in this very confusing and rapidly changing landscape, what do companies need to do in order to bridge that lack of physical realm to really make connections with their customers? So that was the background, and Genesys, what we're really driving towards is creating empathetic customer experiences, and we wanted to, empathize with our end users, with our customers, and to understand what their experience was. So we did a global report, a global survey of 11,000 consumers across the world, from North America, Latin America, Asia Pacific, Europe. To ask them, how has the pandemic been for you? Yeah. Has it been hard? How has it affected, your mental state, your sense of connection with others? How has your behavior changed? What devices are you using? What channels are you using? And what do you want from companies today? And so what we learned was that it's quite a different experience depending on where you are in the world. Some of that is down to how hard the pandemic hit in your particular country. Other reasons could be specific kind of political or the way that the policies were implemented, and it had a different impact on people. So I don't know if you can share any of the slides, but one of the findings we had was we asked where in the world consumers had found the pandemic hard. And where they said they had found it hardest overall was in Latin America and in the US.
Okay.
Both two regions that had, really high levels of infections, very high death rate, a very, very difficult experience. But then there was interesting little pockets all over the world. So for example, Spain and Italy had a very challenging. Consumers said they had a very difficult time during COVID, much more so than French, Germans, the British. Similarly, in Asia Pacific, obviously India had a very difficult time. Were having during when we conducted the survey, it was during that big spike that they had, and the healthcare system was really overwhelmed. But we also discovered that Singapore had a really difficult experience during COVID, which was interesting because their case, I lived there for 12 years and their cases were so low. But when we dug into it, we learned that so many people who live in Singapore are not from Singapore, they're overseas residents. And of course, they've been separated from their friends and family for such a long period of time with a virtually complete travel ban. So those are some of the interesting highlights from the top level of the research. Ginger, I don't know if you want to take it forward and share a few more.
Yeah, just so, going back to the US findings, along with being hard hit by COVID here, it was also during the time when the elections were happening, when there was a lot around the Black Lives Matter movement. So it was like exponential here as well. And I believe, Claire, wasn't Brazil one of the places in Latin America that was hit especially hard?
Yeah.
So, just you could see those interesting pockets. And then, also another thing that was interesting was taking a look at the age groups. You would think that you might assume that older groups might have felt less connected, and they did in some ways, because in some older groups they spent less time on social. But actually, the younger groups, age groups, actually felt much more disconnected and felt like the pandemic was really hard for them. And I think probably because they're at an age where they're expecting to be out and about and socializing and being, at school and all of those things. So it was interesting to see the differences, but also, then kind of turn the conversation to channels, how different people in different age groups in different areas used digital channels to really bridge that that interaction gap.
The younger age group feeling more affected or more disconnected. This is quite interesting for me. So did you dig into this topic a little further? So I understand the topic of school, but if I look at my kids, for example, who probably are in the younger age group on this planet, they basically live and breathe on the net.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
so from a theory point of view, that shouldn't make much of an impact whether they are living and breathing that out of their room or whether they are walking next to their mate and are chatting via WhatsApp to the people that are just around them. So
I'd love to get a better handle on that. Being without children, anything that gives me a better clue would be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't. Go ahead, Claire.
Okay, I was just going to say, so their experience of the pandemic, if you look at millennials and Gen Z, they had by far the hardest time. So I think Gen Z is born after 2000. Ginger, correct me if I'm wrong, but millennials is born after 90. I can't remember, but anyway.
There are a couple of different definitions. I don't know what you used for your report, but millennial tends to go back as far as 1982 for some measures. 1990 is another one, but generally it ends at 2000 or 2001. Yeah.
So all of the participants were over 18, but the youngest two segments had definitely the hardest time during the pandemic. But as you say, Thomas, they were then leaning in to their digital channels. And even though they had lower happiness, lower mental health, all of these things, their digital consumption had gone up, and that actually insulated them from the worst impacts. If you looked at the older generations, their lives were less affected. That maybe they can work from home more easily, or they're kind of established and they don't have so many like career choices and dilemmas in their lives that they need to think through. So their overall happiness was not affected so much, but they were more isolated from others because they didn't have that digital touch point to the same degree.
This is interesting. I'd like to step back to what you said before about Singapore. One of the findings is Singapore. Tobias, my eldest, and his fiancée, Wendy, told me that in both of their companies where they are working, they had, during the serious hard lockdown, a lot of challenges where they were forced to nearly have only the internet connection and the allowance, because there were guards at the entry of the skyscraper where they lived in, and they couldn't go for the park, just go for the next supermarket, and they were not allowed to take a different one, but only the nearest, and then end of story. Under guard and with police in every area. And another observation is, yes, in Singapore and in Malaysia, you have foreign workers which are crowded in their own, let's say, it's a not friendly word, but it's like in a ghetto. So you have had there really spreader events where they had real outbreaks which they could not control. And it's very tricky for these people to stay connected, not only to their relatives in whatever country they live, but also, if you take it from the business perspective, the moment you are in a project, for instance, you are sitting in Malaysia and the project is in Singapore, which is nearly just around the corner, but you are not allowed to join your colleagues, which have only the allowance to go into the customer's office in certain distance and do the work. You miss all the informal informations which normally go the Stille Post, the silent message service, or such as which is going on. Where have you seen the hardest differences over the world, such as in utilization? I have checked with Europe and Germany a bit. You have had observed differences in depth in Germany, France, and, for instance, in Great Britain, what they have used in difference in apps and what they have utilized.
So one of the things that we looked at was how are people consuming digital media? How are they consuming apps? How are they consuming social channels and platforms? And we looked at that through this lens of who's become more connected to others as a result of the pandemic versus who's become less connected. And one of the things we found is that those people who've really been using messaging, who've been using social media, have actually fared this whole experience much better than those who've kind of used more like transactional apps, whether it's like, online banking or looking up the weather. Those are not apps that are either creating positive experiences, whether that's downloading music or movies or ordering food, so these kind of like positive experience apps is much more connected to those who are connected to other people, whereas these transactional, functional apps are being used by those who are not really connected to other people that much. Ginger, I'll let you take over and talk about the countries, because that's quite interesting, given who's on the call.
Yeah. So of course, you know, the we gave Ralph and Thomas a little bit of a hint of this, which they found very amusing. That the #1 app in Germany was the weather app.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have bigger problems in Germany.
Wow.
And you know, there has been this flooding thing recently, so their weather app probably would have really helped.
Yeah. And of course, you know, not surprisingly, your news was very popular in terms of of a more informational app versus a more social app.
Yeah.
So,
how did you take the survey? Was it done in only electronically, such as you gave them a questionnaire and they filled it up, or did you do interviews, such as with Zoom or something like that?
No, it was an online survey.
Okay.
Translated into different languages and fielded by a third-party company that we work with, a third-party partner.
Yeah. I just was curious because in my earlier business days, when I did a lot of personal interviews, that was always getting an extra emotional perspective on top, which was giving me a certain benefit as well. Emotion is my buzzword. Ginger, your observation and your mentioning about the Americas, especially about you have been in America and during that time, was there a change in attitude and emotion you observed?
but personally, you know, I mean, I live in New York City, so it was generally a hot spot. My neighborhood is kind of it's a unique microcosm. It's very, very global. There's a lot of people from. It's probably one of the most international neighborhoods in the city.
Okay.
There's also there's also a big park here. There's also a lot of outdoor dining. So there was a lot of still people walking around and doing their thing with masks, basically. But what was one thing that was interesting going back to the study is we found that one in 6 people in the U.S. and Asia Pacific actually called customer service just to hear a human voice. The number I think globally was 1 in 9, but in those areas it was even higher. And it shows how much some people really were looking for connection on the one side. On the other side, it shows the opportunity for companies when someone does call customer service to give them an empathetic experience. You know, just to make that connection, whatever, and you know, empathetic experiences will mean different things depending on the context. But when you understand what your customers are looking for, you know, by providing that, you can give them that empathetic experience. And I think it shows that's possible, that it's something that you really should do, because you know, people are looking to connect, and they're looking to connect with brands as much as they are with other people.
That one figure tells a huge story right there. Think about it. Who wants to call customer service? I mean, I know that it's a bit of a cliche, a bit of a stereotype, but you know, nobody wants to make that call ever. So
you know,
the fact that you've actually got numbers on people doing so intentionally just to talk to a human being, it's huge. I love it.
So we have a great story from the report that takes a look at that from the opposite side, and it's basically Brighton and Hove Albion Football Club in England. they took their, so obviously no football was being played, no sporting events were being played in the early days. So they did what they called the big ring around, where they did an outbound calling campaign to check on the well-being of their supporters. Especially they started with the most vulnerable season ticket holders who either were differently abled or were 70 years or older. And they just called to check on them, to have a conversation, maybe to give them advice on if they had planned to travel, how to get a refund, if they didn't know how to do online shopping, how to shop online, even to offer to help pick up their groceries or pick up their prescriptions. They made more than 4,500 calls in the first 3 months. And and the cool thing is, not only did they do this amazing and wonderful thing, but they also discovered in making those calls that there were some of their fans who really needed additional help. And they made sure that they connected those people with the services that they needed. So if there was, if they really needed like a local social service agency to help them with something, they helped that fan like make that connection. And how often do you hear of anything like that? Just outstanding.
Outstanding.
It is.
I agree.
Club supporters are already close to fanatically loyal. Now you've got people who will literally kill for them. In a good way.
And that is the aspect when we had a conversation with Ian Jacobs from Forrester, when we checked on the aspect customer service and emotion, as we have our private discussions, such as if you call customer service, you want to have preferred somebody who understands your problem and is helping you in a friendly way, and even not only showing you some empathy, but also helps you with the solution. But now we have something special, such as this could be your only connection to the outside world. And this makes a complete differentiation in customer connection and customer be connected to your customer. Yeah. The latter one is that by free will, you are giving them more time, and they deliver you more time, not only sorting the problem, which comes to the aspect, have you observed, which was a phenomenon where we had long distances, such in Australia. My former employer, Systems Union, always said, I can get on the phone every information I want to have. They are so happy if they have somebody to talk to. How information giving were these the recipients of the interviewees, and were talking about that they were more open to give information about themselves? Have you observed there something?
So we've talked to a lot of Genesys customers about how they have been responding during the pandemic, and just Ginger shared one example. We have so many examples of companies realizing that during the pandemic there are many more types of customers, issues that are non-standard. People have potentially a higher level of anxiety, concerned about whether something's going to be delivered, or the timing, or whether they're going to get their money back. And there's a generally higher level of anxiety. And we saw that across all of the respondents. Those who were more connected, those who are less connected, anxiety had increased for everybody. And so we saw so many great examples of CX processes changing to be more empathetic and to give people more time and to spend more time really going to all of the lengths to understand what people's issues were. We interviewed one company that had completely changed the script for their agents to emphasize that building rapport, sharing your location, having more time built into the schedule for that rapport building phase, and then having more time, a newer model for actually asking questions and really understanding what that person's needs are, rather than, you know, this call has to be finished within 6 minutes. So, you know, that's how it's going to go.
Yeah.
So we saw so many great examples of companies just being like, actually, we need to change our model during this time, and maybe even for good. And they had a really great reaction from customers, and they had a really great reaction from employees. Employees felt like, actually, I'm doing this job because I have great soft skills, and now I'm able to use those, and it's really rewarding for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of the other examples is a company called Textile, which is a fashion company. And to Claire's point exactly, they were getting a lot of calls because of, you know, the disruption in deliveries and in manufacturing, et cetera, et cetera. People were ordering, you know, clothes and weren't getting them or what have you. And so so they wanted to be empathetic, not just to their customers, but also to their employees who were, you know, were getting stressed out about trying to wrap up these calls basically as quickly as possible. And so they just said, no, you know, take the time you need to solve the customer problem. And that made a huge difference. And they did a lot of other cool things to support their employees as well. But it's so nice to see companies step back and say, you know, we want to give a great customer experience, and that means supporting our employees and being empathetic to our employees as well.
One other thing just to add though on that, obviously there are a really surprising number of people who responded to our survey saying that having that outside contact, that human voice, was really important to them. But there are also a huge number of people who have learned the digital tools of the trade as a result of this pandemic and are now completely able to interact with digital channels, self-serve, and being empathetic to those customers is helping them self-serve efficiently and completely without them needing to pick up the phone, right? So there's two sides of it. For those who actually don't want to talk and they just want to go onto the site, simply find what they need and do it themselves, you know, really empathy is also helping them achieve that.
Empathy is a real big topic. Especially, not especially, but also amongst Ralph and myself, where we violently disagree. so I'm basically saying it doesn't matter whether you're really empathetic, or whether you just simulate it, just to be extreme. Yeah? So because the person on the other side actually can't distinguish it as long as the simulation is good. So now that's highly technical, yeah. It's highly technical. But the question from my side would be, in how far did the companies that you talked to express that, in how far that they expressed empathy via technological means, and how did they do that? And follow up then, how was it received? Simple example, not talking to Thomas, but to the Thomas bot. Well, neither of them is empathetic, but it's just as an example. Yeah.
I don't know that we had a story. The third story, I'm just trying to think of what it was but in the report but that's actually, your example, Thomas, is actually one of the ways to be empathetic. As Claire was saying, like, it's understanding what the customer wants and helping to make that happen. Whether it's, I have a simple problem, I just want to change my address or update my, you know, something about my account information or whatever. I want to do it quickly. I don't want to have a whole conversation. You know, just get me to a bot so I can take care of what I need to do as quickly as possible. And that's being empathetic, because you're putting yourself in my shoes and knowing that it's important to me to just do what I need to do and get on with my day, right? So, or maybe I'm stressed out and I have a package missing and I want to talk to a person, but even then, we found that empathy was the number one thing that people are looking for in a service experience. But even then, they still want speed, whether it's from a human or a bot. The number 2 thing was efficiency, and just taking this off on a tangent now. The number 3 thing was personalized service that feels unique to my needs, which, of course, for me, being all about data and personalization, I was like, really, that's number 3? But of course, people want to be heard and understood, right? So it's no surprise that was actually number 1.
Okay, let's play a little mind game.
Okay, I don't know. I'm scared now.
Because it's a lot about customer service, right? Let's stick to the topic of empathy. So, can a bot be empathetic?
The bot isn't empathetic. The process is empathetic, right? The process
it's exhibited via the bot. Okay,
yeah. The process of using the bot to give me what I need, whether that's information or to complete some basic transaction, et cetera, et cetera. It's about the process, because the company is understanding what I'm trying to accomplish and is helping me do it in the most efficient way. That's empathetic, because you're putting yourself in my shoes and knowing that I just want to get this thing done, and a bot is an easy, helpful way to do it. So here we go. So that's the way that it's empathetic. Obviously it's a bot. It's, it can't actually empathize with you, but the experience is empathetic because it's helping you accomplish what you're trying to do.
So just to add on to that, I think there's 2 aspects. Bots can be designed with empathy. So one is really understanding what your intent is and giving you the right thing. So that's empathizing and using the information that it's managed to gather as you're looking across the site. Hi, Thomas, understand you're looking at the lead levels in this paint. So it's using the information from all of your searching to be like, I know who you are, I know what you're trying to achieve, and that's empathizing with you. And then maybe it can gather a little bit more information and it can direct you to the FAQ or something like that and solve your problem. If not, you can then orchestrate an empathetic journey by making sure that context is transferred over to an agent who doesn't need to ask you any questions. They know what you're trying to achieve and they can solve your problem. So there's 2 aspects to it. And I completely agree with what Ginger said. The bot itself is just the automation, but the design of it, designing it from the customer's perspective, avoiding, pre-filling, prompting and pre-filling, and avoiding repetition, I think is key to it feeling empathetic and personalized.
This is a very valuable aspect, as I would agree if you have a smart designing team which is giving brains and heart in what they produce, they can make it, they can create a feeling where I feel comfortable with. I would agree on that one. And honestly, I'm the professor who is chasing his glasses where he has them on his nose. So if the moment comes where I can make the difference between the bot or a human being, it might take some time. This is where Thomas was teasing me a bit. The brilliance of the programmers are the limits to how empathetic it might get. The interesting aspect is the hybrid version you were telling about, such as the moment the bot is getting in hustle, he is transferring to human intelligence again. And this is the way I love it, such as this is what I would like to know about connecting with people. We had own experiences, all of us, during that pandemic time. But what did you find out by your research, probably on how sales procedures have getting completely different? What is the sales attitude during these times?
That's a good question. We didn't really cover sales interactions. It was more service interactions. So
yeah, apologize. It's simply me being a sales and marketing and service chap. I'm always curious and on a bit on these other aspects, but I'm more than happy to dig in another direction.
Well, one thing that might be interesting, though, in terms of the sales and marketing experience is how people are comfortable sharing data with companies because they feel like it's doing so will give them a better customer experience. And in this case, a customer service experience. And that's interesting to know when you're in sales and marketing, because you're hopefully working closely with the contact center. And that's, that brings up different opportunities. So generally, companies actually feel, I keep saying companies, but when I mean people, customers feel more connected, generally speaking, when consumers remember them. And, some have mixed feelings, but the majority are feeling, except in Europe. And so there's one area of differences. So in the US, nearly half feel more connected with the company when they feel remembered. Latin America, it's 58%. Europe, it's about a third. In Asia Pacific, it's 43%. And then they have mixed feelings about when a company remembers them. In Europe, that's 45%, and it's about a third everywhere else. Okay. So related to that, about 2/3 globally of consumers, nearly 3/4 of consumers globally try to control how much data is shared with the companies that they interact with. 12% are always like, hey, here, take all my data. I'm good. Yeah. And then 1% are like, no, I don't want you to have anything at all. But even so, 2/3 feel that like I said before, feel that when companies are collecting data, they're going to wind up having a better customer experience as a result.
Okay, Ralph has...
I didn't want to take you on the wrong track, such as I misused my call center in one of my former business lives, 12 persons I had a very close connection to do not only customer service and deliver service, but also to ask them when the service problem has been resolved for the next deal we can make. Yeah,
right.
I was a nasty one, such as they are in a good mood now. The problem is solved. Now they are the big spenders coming up. Yeah, probably.
We actually did have a data point on that I don't have handy in terms of the exact number, but we asked people what they felt was the components of a phenomenal experience. And one of the components was making sure that my issue is completely resolved before you do anything else. So don't try and sell me something if you haven't resolved my issue.
That's a good one.
That was in there. And that was also along with more than half of respondents think that companies that send non-sales related materials after a service interaction are giving a great customer experience. That's also part of giving a great customer experience, because maybe they're following up with needed information and it's helpful.
That's a very interesting example. And then going back to Marshall, we had, for instance, with German railways and Swiss railways, and with some hospitals, some interactions where they gave, where they didn't deliver the proper service. They didn't send something to sell, but simply they send a voucher card. We are so sorry that we didn't meet your expectations, and we try harder next time. Please take our excuse and make a choice of a gift of what you would like to have from our portal. That one was a cool one. Marshall, you had one.
I did. I was actually going to move us on to probably the next part of this topic. And Ralph has already mentioned the brain and the heart. So we've got the Scarecrow and the Tin Woodsman taken care of. Let's get some Cowardly Lion. Your thought leadership. So how are you going to encourage or give courage to Genesys customers to make the substantive changes that are suggested by what is in the report? And for that matter, how might this affect Genesys policy and products in the future? Give us some futurism.
Wow, that's a great question. I will give it a shot.
That means take your time.
Okay, so give them the courage. I think there's two parts of it. One is the risk of not doing it, and the other part is the opportunity. So we found that 70% of consumers said that a company is only as good as its customer service.
Okay.
So the customer experience is just so important in defining brand success today. So, ignoring these findings, ignoring consumer preferences, pushing empathy down the list and focusing on speed and offloading, it's not going to generate these experiences that set you apart from the competition. And it's very competitive on experience. There's a lot of great channels out there, and there's a lot of quite bad channels out there. And, all of us, we could probably fill the rest of this time and then another hour talking about some of the terrible bot experiences that we've had. A bot popping up and blocking the entire screen when I've only just got onto the website. Not empathetic to me, not empathetic at all. Like reaching a point where I'm like frustrated. No, please, human being, please. There's a human being there. True story. So I think there's a huge opportunity to win on service, and we're doing another piece of research at the moment. It's not released yet, but Ginger and I are working on it at the moment, and it shows that companies are putting a lot of resources into the customer experience. They're putting a lot more budget in, they're putting a lot more headcount in, and just the strategic initiatives that they're driving. We're going to start seeing really, really great things. And I think, that there's all the courage you need.
Yeah. I know that one of the angriest words I have ever shouted into a phone was agent, spoken to an IVR, because I was so frustrated.
I think we've all had that experience. Well, so to that point, one of the other findings was that about a third of consumers still find that customer service is always a hassle. And that's a big number. And so if you look at that 70% versus the 30%, there's this huge gap in there that is an opportunity for companies to step up their customer experience game and win.
So one of the challenges you have seen in the German survey, I was looking to the right because I opened the German survey part, is that the learnings, which is encouraging you to undertake your next research in customer experience and do it, elsewise it kills you. Either you do something on it or you are going out of business. It's like go digital or die. Yeah, I'm a bit harsh on that one, but you are freely giving them free of charge advice to become better, and this on a worldwide perspective. And I see this as a fantastic thing. Now,
Thank you.
how do we drive them forward? It's like I have the experience with a dentist. I prefer those dentists which don't hurt me. Yeah?
Brush your teeth.
Yeah.
Yep.
Get false teeth.
So how do you take it forward? You talked about that the next initiative you are on is customer experience, and that you try to how do I convince, for instance, a resistant German company owner to invest in customer experience? I have the bad word of consultancy resistant. Yeah, they do not take advice resistant. They know it all better. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of challenges that organizations are facing today. So, one is that transaction volume is going up a lot. We've got our own data from Genesys Cloud. Transaction volume is basically doubling each year, and it's across all channels. So, they're going to come into bottlenecks, staff burnout, customer satisfaction problems, that eventually there'll be a tipping point where they'll have to think, there is a better way. Also, once, maybe you have a lot of different channels going, the complexity of having all these different touch points, context is not getting transferred across channels, and so customers are getting frustrated. That the digital era is here. In some markets faster than other markets. Germany not being at the fastest edge, that is true. And I'd actually be interested to ask you why you think that is. But yeah, my response to that is, I think they will be with increasing volume, just bottlenecks, efficiency issues, staff burnout, that they'll need to find scalable ways of being more efficient and more innovative.
Well, to answer your question, the biggest threat to innovation is success. Current success, that blinds for the future.
And put it in a polite way, aside of that, we have not enough resources at hand if we are successful, because everybody is stupid enough to run for shareholder value instead of making customer experience better. Yeah, because then I can focus on my customer, or if I focus on my customer, I can go for shareholder value. Yeah, but it's my attitude. Yeah, I'm a big fan of zoonomics, such as take care of the people, then the money is coming. Yeah. Who are, if you see a worldwide, who is more positively responding to your advices and findings than, for instance, my prejudiced German resistant for any advice and consultancy? The stubborns.
Well, that's a tough question, because this is Claire and I both joined in March, so this is our first report. This is our first time giving advice. So in terms of the advice that we're giving through Genesys, we'll have to get back to you on that. But that said, the reports that we're working on have connecting threads, and so you'll see as they come out overlapping messages that hopefully people will kind of get the message, because we're repeating it. So we're finding at State of CX that empathy is coming up as important in that report as well. We're asking a different bunch of people in a different way, We're asking which industries are on the right track. And for example, banking was a leading industry in terms of people thinking that they give a good customer experience in the connected customer experience report.
Really?
They're among the top industries in the stated customer experience as well. So there are definitely common threads, and hopefully that people will believe the data, and say, like Claire said, and say, okay, well, if I don't take this opportunity, I'm going to fall way behind.
Yeah, you are doing a very fantastic, diplomatic, and friendly and charming way of delivering all these know-how. So they should take by free will and wholeheartedly embrace your advice and make something out of it. And I think it's a really cool approach that you take that opportunity given to you by your employer, that you play the cards differently. There's this thought leadership, soft selling, or experienced giving, and make something out of that fantastic opportunity.
Speaking of, anyone who's listening, anyone in the audience who hasn't looked at this report yet, you really should, because not only is the information good, it is extremely consumable. It's there, but it does not. You can read it, you can look at it. It's a good report that is also friendly, and you don't get that very often. So if that's what we're going to be seeing from Claire and Ginger and the rest of Genesys,
so
I'm thrilled to see what comes next.
Thank you.
Let me double back for a second. So also look into the future, coming from the topic of things are getting more digital. Contact and connections are increasingly digital. Now we have on the other side the data collection topic. How do you see these merge? Because they are inherently conflicting.
I think it's about giving. I think so. Again, just going to plug our new report one more time. It's great. But we asked consumers what social, environmental, or ethical issue do you care most about? And then we gave them a list of 15, like animal welfare and race relations and gender diversity and human rights and welfare and data protection and responsible use of AI and carbon reduction. We gave them this huge list, said pick the 3 that matter most to you and should matter most to the companies that you care about. Number 1 for all regions across the world was data protection and privacy. That was the top issue that consumers care about globally, and that they expect companies to treat with utmost respect. Fortunately, companies said the same. So I think that they are, treating data very responsibly and prioritizing governance.
Okay, so now this goes into the empathy point. So I'm a bit more in the privacy portion of that.
Yeah.
Another topic that we are, well, as Germans, fairly big on. So
yeah,
how do you see it that much? Because again, that is fairly conflicting with each other. I can't help you if I don't know anything about you, but if I don't, well, but I'm afraid of you that you're knowing too much about me and are using it in whatever ways.
I think that just comes down to transparency and choice. Making it very easy to be like, which selection of cookies would you like to accept? Rather than just like accept all, but actually really being like, this is this, this is this, this is this, and making it very, very clear to give. And it's just about building trust. And we found that trust has actually increased pretty much everywhere. in companies, in making that exchange.
Okay.
We found that trust had increased.
Okay.
As we are closing our fantastic and exciting hour, and I got the friendly hint that there is some more meetings and other stuff coming up, I would like to take my opportunity and thank you very, very much. We promise that we will give a hint to our friendly viewers and in the long tail viewers as well in the comments that they have a fair share where they can download that fantastic report and these findings. And we are very much looking forward having you another time here when you can tell us a bit about your new ideas coming up and how they are developing and the experience you made with the first approach and how people are accepting over the regions your advice.
Yes.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
As reports come out in the future, don't wait for an invitation. Tell us you've got something. We will make room for you. Because this is a great start.
Be careful what you ask for, Marshall. We will be back.
Oh,
yeah. Cool! I love that one, and thank
love
you
the Terminator.
very, very much for your
although he's
time.
an Austrian.
Thanks again for having us. It's been great.
Thanks for being with us. So that was highly enlightening and fun.
Thanks again.
Okay, and thanks to the audience. Unluckily, no external questions today, but still, thanks to everyone who attended.